whenever we stand up for the Jewish people, um, it is a very challenging place as a Muslim activist. And it is highly misunderstood. Standing up for the Jews does not mean I don't stand up for the Palestinians.
What inspired you to take up the work that you do, addressing religious extremism and anti-Semitism?
Much of the extremism, violence and hatred in the world today is peddled, is promoted in the name of religion. Hamas is the most glorified, internationally glorified terrorist organization. You have to read the Hamas charter. One is that it calls for the complete destruction of Israel as an essential condition for the liberation of the Palestine people. So this calls for the annihilation, the destruction, the dissemination, the delegitimization of a group of people.
How does the Muslim community perceive the fact that you advocate against anti-Semitism?
I have to be very honest here. There are some outworn Islamic religious teachings that legitimize the hatred of Jews.
There is a difference between religion and religious extremism and radicalization. What is this difference?
Why are extremists committing extremism? Because they have been trained and preached and told there's a better life in the hereafter. Kill in the name of God so that you will get paradise. These teachings have to go. There's a context to religion and there's a text. If you bring a rigid interpretation to today's context, it's going to be difficult because we're going to brainwash a generation of youth into saying death is better than life.
Welcome everyone, you're watching a new episode of Conversations with me, Alanki. There are many factors which can lead to wars and conflicts in the world. Now, among most of the reasons, some reasons that lead to conflicts are due to divisions between race, religion, ethnicity, and sometimes even caste. Today, I wish to have a conversation focusing on these issues with Soraya Deen. Now, for those who are not aware, Soraya Deen is an award-winning Muslim feminist, activist, and lawyer. Among many things, Soraya is the co-founder of the Interfaith Solidarity Network, one of the largest interfaith organizations in Los Angeles, and the founder of the Muslim Women Speakers Movement. The women work in the areas of addressing religious extremism, anti-Semitism, hate, dismantling patriarchy, gender equality, and public leadership. She conducts extensive workshops in several countries on building leadership. She has authored books as well, and she's currently reading for her public leadership credentials at Harvard. Welcome.
Thank you, Alanki.
Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I mean, I know, Soraya, that this conversation revolves around a very sensitive topic, but I think it's a conversation that we must have. So firstly, tell me, what inspired you to take up the work that you do, addressing religious extremism and anti-Semitism? Why are you so passionate about this cause?
Okay. Thank you for having me once again. It's so wonderful to be back in Sri Lanka. I mean, it's booming, it's beautiful. I'm meeting so many people who are so joyous to be. I don't know, have you been to Lakeside Cinnamon?
Absolutely.
Fabulous. I'm enjoying the food. So you ask a very serious, deep question as to why I took up to this particular field. It's a high niche because I believe that much of the extremism, violence, and hatred in the world today is peddled, is promoted in the name of religion, and religion has got a free pass in many ways. At the intersection of gender, the discrimination goes unnoticed, particularly for women. So that was my stepping stone to recognizing why is it that women of faith are being discriminated. And that took me further into the study of understanding why is it that we overlook the hatred when it comes from our own religious communities.
And I would like to focus on the fact that you work in areas addressing anti-Semitism. What is anti-Semitism according to you?
Okay, so anti-Semitism is the hatred for Jews. No, it's a blanket hatred. It is like now what is happening after October 7th is that it is legitimized. It has got traction. And I have a little daughter, she's 21. Some might not say little, but she's so little to me still. She attends college, and then she sees the hatred that is pervasive in the United States. And I see colleges and communities, everybody has taken to the street and calling for the eradication, the murder, the annihilation of a population of people that happen to be Jewish. And I'm going to defend anybody. It's not only the Jewish population. If somebody else is being attacked, I'm going to stand up. So that particular call that is pervasive, deep, and legitimized today needs to be talked and addressed.
What do you think of the conflict between Israel and Palestine right now? Do you think it's an issue? Do you think it's a problem that exists between the Israelis and Palestinians, or is it something beyond that?
Okay, so this question requires us to go really deep back. If you look at the 1929 Hebron massacre, where 69 Jews were murdered, raped, and killed in the most inhuman and brutal way, that we see a repetition of it in October 7th. No? So this hatred is pervasive, and it has deep roots. And nobody is going to understand this problem until they understand the actors to this problem. One such actor is, of course, Hamas. Hamas is the most glorified, internationally glorified terrorist organization. I come from the United States. The United States has spent more than 10 times they spent it to rebuild Europe on Hamas. And what have they done? They have built tunnels, and they have used their people as weapons, as shields to hide. So what I would really say, Alanki, is people, you have to read the Hamas charter. If I tell you I'm running a company and this is my mission and vision, you have to read what I am proposing to do, Likewise, most people don't know the Hamas charter. The Hamas charter is a very dangerous document. And I call on people to read this document. There are four important agendas in that document. One is that it calls for the complete destruction of Israel as an essential condition for the liberation of the Palestine people and the establishment of a theocratic state based on Islamic Sharia. So this calls for the annihilation, the destruction, the dissemination, the delegitimization of a group of people. Secondly, the charter says the need for both unrestrained and unceasing holy war, that is jihad, to attain the above objective. So why are we hearing the word jihad? And if we watch what happened October 7th, most of the crime was committed calling out, invoking my God, Allah. It said Allahu Akbar. And third, what the Hamas charter says is it has a deliberate disdain and dismisses any negotiated political settlement that should happen between the Jewish people and the Muslims people. And fourthly, the reinforcement of the historic anti-Semitic trope that culminates in a sinister conspiracy theories. So based on all these four areas, the Hamas Charter has always been a document that has peddled hatred towards the Jewish people.
So, Soraya, you did point out that Hamas is not representative of the Palestinian people. Could you elaborate on this?
Oh, they in fact are the representatives, I would say, because they came to power in 1975.
No, what I actually meant was, do they actually represent the sentiment of the Palestinian people?
Oh, good. Yeah. So I think most people in Gaza don't approve of Hamas, but they have no voice. If you disapprove, I mean, you may have seen recently how people who have just begun to disapprove Hamas have been murdered, mutilated, hung in broad daylight. So they don't approve of Hamas, but they hate Israel. That's one aspect. And because they hate Israel, there were many in Gaza who did not speak against the atrocities of October 7th.
All right. How does the Muslim community perceive the fact that you advocate against anti-Semitism?
Hmm. So, this concept of anti Semitism has a very low bar in the Muslim community. For some, um, it's divinely ordained and scripturally legitimized. So, hating the Jew is, I have to be very honest here, there are some outworn Islamic religious teachings that legitimize the hatred of Jews, where it says, uh, um, oh, get the Jew behind the rocks and kill them. If not, the judgment day will not come. And that particular teaching should not be taken very lightly, because we have preachers even in the United States and many parts of the Western world who teach that to their congregations. So, um, so whenever we stand up for the Jewish people, um, it is a very challenging place as a Muslim activist. And it is highly misunderstood. Standing up for the Jews does not mean I don't stand up for the Palestinians. You know,
Right.
I care about the Palestinians, especially when I see the women, mothers, particularly today, who have lost their children because Hamas has concentrated only on building terror tunnels, not one shelter for the women and children. I mean, it's sad. People don't see through Hamas's methodology of propaganda.
Do you think the Palestinian people get sufficient aid and assistance from the international community
Are you asking post October 7th
post
or
October
before?
7 and before?
Okay, so absolutely. You know, if Israel is in a war started by Hamas, I've never heard of a group that is at war feeding those people who initiated the war. But let's be very honest and give the devil its due. There's enough of aid going into Gaza, but who disrupts that aid convoys are also Hamas. They just want to show win this propaganda war. So there are many dimensions to that. Maybe in some instances there would have been derailed transport and delivery of aid. That has to be explored. Well, I'm not giving a free pass to anybody, but I do know factually that millions of tons of food is being delivered every day.
Now, that is indeed, Soraya, new information to me
Mhm.
as well. I wasn't really aware of
Mhm.
the funds being allocated and how it was utilized. But I also gather you have worked with Palestinian people
Mhm.
as well. What has that experience been like?
Oh my goodness. So I don't know if you heard of Vivian Silver. She's the most famous Jewish activist who was living in the border by Gaza and Israel, who was the number one peace activist, who crossed the border, brought Palestinians for medical aid, funded their programs, built relationships with the Palestinian women. You know, Alanki, October 7th, she hid behind a cupboard when so many bullets were fired at her. You know, this kind of indiscriminate killing happened on October 7th. So, when we were working with Vivian Silva, my friend Anila Ali, she and I, we are a coalition of Muslim women from South Asia who have come together to address anti Semitism, hatred, and religious extremism in our community. We were to go in a delegation on the invitation of people who organized that event to Gaza when this happened. So the point is that yes, do we work with Palestinian women? Absolutely. A lot of peace activists, even as we talk now, so much work is happening behind doors because Israel's future and the Palestinian future are intertwined. You know,
Absolutely.
yes, we have to build trust and we have to build security.
And I also gather that you've met some hostages. What was this experience like for you?
Yes, after October 7th, we went a few miles from the border of the kibbutz Be'eri, where some of the massacres happened. You know, Hamas killed Muslims. Hamas killed Bedouins. There is this story of Hamed. I met him personally. In fact, I have photographs with him. Hamed's wife was in a hijab. They were driving to work. Hamas intercepted them October 7th, and Hamed begged them, please don't kill my wife. Their 1-year-old daughter was in the back of the car. Well, you know what they did? They riddled her body with 35 bullets. You know, that's not the only one. Then I met Mr. Shamriz, who was a leader in Kibbutz Farhaza, whose son was abducted, kidnapped, and killed. He was saying how his community had even a Gaza fund for Gazans. And when Gazans were paid, Palestinians living in Gaza were paid $100 to $200 a month. When they crossed the border and come to work to Israel, the minimum wage was $2,000. Israel has labor laws. It's a democracy, you know. And then I met, this is a very sad story of Mirev, whose mother was on the phone with her. And she said to her, I can hear Arabic being spoken by the window. So, and she hung up. And then later, the Hamas terrorists, I mean, there's no other way to refer to them as terrorists. They went into the house, tapped at the door, and they asked her to open the door. And she said only she was in the house. She got her husband and her grandchild to hide. So what they did was they butchered her. They cut her into pieces. I mean, this is the level of pervasivity that I cannot understand that people are not talking about, and they're supporting Hamas. So they cut her into pieces. And next to that was her sister's house. They kidnapped both her nephews. And they took her, and both the boys are now dead. And the Hamas terrorists called Mirev because they took the phone of her mother, and they called her back, and they said, the old bitch lied to us. Be careful, we are coming back for you. So that is the threat level for the Jewish people who live in Israel, bordering Gaza. So to tell you, yeah, I did meet people. I heard stories, and still, Alanki, these Jewish people, I must give them a lot of credit, especially Mirev. She said to me, it's not all Palestinians, it was Hamas. They are able to discern the difference between terrorism, and they give the benefit of the doubt to the Palestinians. And I thought that's beautiful.
I'm really sorry to hear about the stories that you've been telling me about. It's very traumatizing
Yes.
indeed. As I see it, a war leads to suffering for all those involved, and there ought to be an end to it, a practical and sustainable solution which will work in the long run. How do you view this, and what do you think of, how do you think they should come about with a ceasefire, or how can this very complex situation be resolved?
Yeah. So let's go back a little to the Jordan peace treaty with Egypt. Those happened. Those countries are living in harmony. In 2007, President Omar, he gave the Palestinians, Hamas, who were ruling at that time, the PLO, everything that they wanted. Hamas denied it. So this is the Hamas policy of rejectionism that prevents peace being brought in. And I must tell you, we are a group of women. We were working on the Abrahamic Accords when this happened, October 7th. You know, there were so many countries in the Middle East who were coming on board to normalize relationships with Israel, to enter into trade and diplomacy, and to recognize each country's security and safety. And I think definitely Saudi Arabia was next in line to come on board. And that's when October 7th happened, because Hamas, they don't want peace. I mean, if they wanted peace, peace could have happened, you know. So what they did was they disrupted the whole thing. They come into a sovereign country, kill, rape, kidnap 1,400 people. And then to this date, I'm wearing this pin for the hostages. There are over 100 hostages, some of whom are American citizens who are from my own country, for the release of those hostages. So if you talk about a possibility, a path, Alanki, we have to ask Hamas and the Palestinians to commit to nonviolence. They have to say non-violence.
Sure. Soraya, there is a difference between religion and religious extremism
Mhm.
and radicalization. What is this difference, and where should a line be drawn so that there is no such religious extremism which
Mhm.
can lead to more conflicts?
Yes. Yeah, so because I'm a Muslim, I must talk about what is wrong and happening in my community. The lines are blurred in my community when it comes to religion and religious extremism. When I was in the West Bank, we saw posters offering rewards for martyrs. Martyrdom is highly revered in the Muslim world. We can't continue to do that. Then jihad is highly revered. We don't need to kill someone to prove what Islam or the Prophet Muhammad is. They are iconic figures. Islam is the religion of 1.7 billion people. Why do we need to kill someone in order to prove that Islam is superior? This is all, Alanki, I have to be very, very firm in this because I'm sure some of your audiences must resonate with my message, We Muslims have to preach a theology that focuses on life, not life after death. Because why are extremists committing extremism? Because they have been trained and preached and told there's a better life in the hereafter. Kill in the name of God so that you will get paradise. These teachings have to go.
So, would it be right to say that misinformation leads to radicalization?
Partly, and also there are outworn theologies, 14,000 years, 1400 years old theologies, 2000, 3000. There's a context to religion and there's a text. So if we bring a very rigid interpretation of the whatever our scripture, it doesn't have to be only Islam. What about Christianity? What about Judaism? If you bring a rigid interpretation to today's context, it's going to be difficult because we're going to brainwash a generation of youth into saying death is better than life. God has given you life with gifts, talents, and abilities to pursue.
And also, Soraya, you're also of the view that religious extremism denies women of equality, and you advocate for women's rights. Tell us more about this.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm in Sri Lanka to administer the estate of my mother. She died intestate. So today, my brothers are getting 2/5 and I get only 1/5. That is a level of discrimination. That is in our personal laws. But my constitution of Sri Lanka says I have equity and equality. But these personal laws rob, especially family laws, are very discriminative towards women. For instance, you know the MAMDA, Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act. A group of people want child marriage with a proviso. What is the proviso for child marriage, Alanki? If my daughter dies today and if my community is unable to educate her, but want to give her in marriage to a 40-year-old man, my daughter will be raped every night. What is the purpose of my community? So we oppose child marriage, no provisos. And then if you might know that in the Muslim world, we even debate that Muslim women can't be judges. What is this, so these are some of the things. In custody laws, patriarchal laws are very highly discriminative. So religion, we did a study on patriarchy and religion for over a year in the United States. And what we came up with was we need to introduce feminist theologies. We have that. I come from a progeny where Khadija, radiallahu anhu, who is the first wife of the Prophet, she was a businesswoman. She employed the Prophet. Today, Muslim women are not given that freedom of choice and freedom of leadership.
So would you say that somewhere in between there was a transition, there was a change in thought and the way religion is preached?
Oh, definitely. What happened to us Sri Lankans? I am first a Sri Lankan. I embrace my Sri Lankan culture. Only after I was born in this land did I become a Muslim. So country first. But what happened to us here is we began, the Muslims. I'll talk about the Muslims because that's my community. I see the fault lines and I have a right to talk about it. We embraced Arab culture, Arab tradition. I went to a Muslim school. So tell me, spare me this, what is happening on the ground today. We wore modestly, Now we are told that Muslim women have to cover their face and show their eyes and, be chaste. We didn't grow up like that. My great grandmother, I remember her. She was a very liberal Muslim. So, answering your question, yes, Arab culture and tradition has crept in, and that's good. Every country we have stuff to learn, but if it is not compatible with our culture, we need to not follow that.
Sure.
As simple as
Um,
that.
as someone who's so passionate about strengthening women's rights and all the work that you do about these causes that you're genuinely passionate about, what do you wish to change, or what is the change you seek to achieve by the work you do?
Okay. Um, I would like to see for Sri Lanka, my needs are different for each country. I am working deeply in religious freedom issues. I co-chair the women's working group of the International Religious Table Roundtable in the District of Columbia in DC. So what we see is that in the name of religion, uh, women's women are denied, they're denied their rights, you know. We want a new caliber of messages and new theologians to preach something new and compatible, where women are treated as equals. Because just as much as a man is created, men believe that they have received God's message and women are the benefactors. So let me get it and tell the woman what she needs to believe. So I need to see, I hope there will be a world where we have sufficient young Muslim voices who will stand up and say, if what you're saying doesn't pass the test of equity and equality, let's rethink it. It's not proper.
So before we move on to the final question, Sarai, let's talk about your story. You are the daughter of a mother who is Buddhist and your father is a Muslim. So it's an interfaith marriage. How has this journey been brought up in this family? How has it shaped your thoughts and your views?
Okay. I think I was one of the blessed ones, blessed Sri Lankans. I say this is a gift that nobody can take away from me. I had the great honor and privilege to learn through my mother Buddhist teachings about self-realization. How is it that you have to change from within before you can expect change from outside? And from my father, I learned a lot about religion per se and God realization. So merging the two and living in Sri Lanka has been one of the greatest gifts that I take everywhere I go, because I look at interfaith dialogue through the lens of my childhood. And I have a strong message for Sri Lankans, especially who are Buddhists. You have been a wonderful community for us Muslims, because I work a lot in religious freedom, as I said. In 13 Muslim majority countries, minorities are not treated well. This is a very unique country, a very special country, and I hope we will transcend borders and together raise the banner of being a Sri Lankan.
Absolutely. And finally, what is your message to the audience watching this program right now, given that you feel strongly about the causes you've taken up?
Yes. So I tell everybody, we need to give up our stories of the past and create a vision for the future. And the simple analogy is when you drive a car, there's a small mirror. The rear view mirror is so small because we don't want to continue to be looking behind. And the windshield is really broad. Look ahead, So, and remember, every setback is a setup for a comeback. So, to the youth particularly, I say participate in the system. Be civic minded, civic conscious, and wake up every day and ask, what can I do for my country?
All right. Thank you very much for the meaningful conversation that we had. And I wish you all the best in all the work you do in your activism and advocacy. Thank you. And I really hope that there will, going forward, given that there is such an advancement in science and technology and information, that there would be less divide among people, because everyone is accessible. I mean, information is accessible to everyone. It's a time where people grow, where they are more intelligent, they have access to information. So I really do hope there would be less conflicts in the world due to religious extremism and radicalization. And I wish you all the best once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Alanki. I really appreciate being here today.
Welcome. Thank you everyone for watching. I do believe that there are no real winners in a war. or in any conflict for that matter. And I really hope that this conversation shed some light and was interesting and meaningful for all of you. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with a new episode in the new year. Until then, stay safe and take care.